Did Caroline make you see Bad Cinderella?
No, excuse me. By the time they came, Bad Cinderella had closed like the week before, and I was like, damn it.
I feel like I've experienced it through you in some ways, though.
Honestly,
and my work here is done.
You probably have.
I'm good now. Thank you.
But on the whole, I've been a saint to those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello and welcome to Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Connor Perkins.
And I'm Caroline A. Meddy.
Welcome to all of our returning listeners. It's great having you back here with us. And welcome to any new listeners. Thank you so much for hitting play. Please also remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast so all of our episodes download to your device and you don't miss out on anything. And then everybody at the end of the episode or in the middle or at the beginning, you're all going to hit 5 stars and leave a written review wherever you're listening to the podcast. So that way we're seen in search results. Other people can find the podcast. They might see what you liked about it. And then it could be the difference between them hitting play or passing us by. So thank you very much for doing that.
Well, everybody, we're up to our tips and tricks episode, our first tips and tricks of season 4. And we are absolutely thrilled to finally have another guest on the podcast today.
Yeah, we're adding guests and interviews into our tips and tricks cycle. So get ready for more of these to come.
Yes. And today you are in for such a special treat. Because today we are thrilled to welcome Emily Rome to the podcast. Emily is an educator and journalist who has been published in the Los Angeles Times, Entertainment Weekly, The Hollywood Reporter, Inverse, Vanity Fair, IO9, and more. She earned her MA in Shakespeare Studies from the University of Birmingham, and the second season of her podcast, Shakespeare's Shadows, launched in December 2023. Shakespeare's Shadows delves into a single Shakespeare character in each episode, weaving together interviews with actors and academics. It's a podcast that celebrates how Shakespeare's characters can be interpreted, examined, and reimagined in innumerable new ways. And Emily has been joined on the podcast by stars like Patrick Page, Len Cariou, and Bridgerton's Adjoa Ando. Emily and I met during the pandemic. Well, I just love that you can make friends from around the country who you never would have met during the pandemic. So we met doing pandemic Zoom Shakespeare, as we did with the Cursed Players. So Emily would lead fantastic, sometimes she'd be part of the cast, and often she would lead these fantastic talkbacks and cast discussions after the readings. And I remember the first time that Emily spoke, my jaw was on the floor because her Shakespeare knowledge is actually unbelievable and so fascinating. And so today we have Emily here to talk about the connection between Disney and Shakespeare. And I think you're going to be surprised by how much of a connection there is. So after all of that, Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh boy. Now I have to live up to that introduction. That all was a lovely intro. Very kind of you.
But it's all true.
And it's all true. You will, please.
Well, yes, I, have just been delighted to, get to know Caroline and now finally getting to meet Connor.
Yeah.
Although, in a way, it feels like I already know you a little bit from listening to your podcast.
I know. I feel the same way.
Creepy,
exactly. Except, as I'm sure everyone, once they hear Emily talk on this episode, I know that you're all going to go and listen to Shakespeare's Shadows, which we will tell you how to do that. Emily is so much more professional than we are. So get ready for the most educational episode of this podcast that you have ever had.
But educational and fun and just it's so good. It's so good. So good. You should be very proud of yourself.
It's a different style. It's a different approach to podcasting. I mean, the fact that a Washington Post podcast called Presidential inspired the format says something, but I would absolutely say educational and fun apply to Poor Unfortunate podcasts as well.
You're too nice.
For
Honestly,
real.
stop.
You guys, yours is well researched and well prepared. I'll tell you, I listen to yours when I'm like, I need something warm and fuzzy, but also still intellectually stimulating. Like, it's not, for real. It sounds like I'm going to like debate club sometimes when I listen to your podcast, and I love it.
Honestly,
It feels like that.
sometimes you are. Sometimes you are.
So Emily reached out back in the tough days of the SAG-AFTRA strike when Connor and I were like, oh my goodness, how do we make content for this Disney podcast when we cannot talk about Disney? And Emily was like, what if we talk about Shakespeare? And I couldn't believe I had never thought of that before. But now we can really acknowledge the Disney aspect of this instead of having to like talk around it and hint at it. So I'm so glad that we waited and can really talk some Disney with you, Emily. So thank you for reaching out.
It's really like the fusion of the two things that Caroline loves most.
Yeah, if there was a pie chart of my personality, it's like these two things. There's like a tiny little sliver of like Bridgerton, maybe, but that's kind of it.
That's
it.
Right. Maybe a bigger sliver like now that season 3 is fresh.
Exactly.
But.
It's so true. So for everyone at home, we have a couple of more questions. We want to talk to Emily. We want you all to get to know her a bit more. And then Emily is really going to take it away with the true tips and tricks section of this episode. And then, of course, we have to play a game. So stay tuned to the end because we always have to make everybody play a game. So, Emily, now that we've given everybody a little bit of an intro, tell the folks at home who might not know you as well as I am fortunate enough to, tell them about yourself. Can you talk a little bit about when you fell in love with Shakespeare and then the path that led you to starting Shakespeare Shadows?
Yeah, as far as how I fell in love with Shakespeare, I was fortunate to grow up going to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival every summer with my family, starting at age 8. So yeah, that's where the spark was lit. And as for kind of how things really led up to my podcast and such, my first career was in entertainment journalism, as I guess folks heard in the intro. So writing about film, television, music, and theater. I still dabble in freelance writing, but I've since shifted my career to education, particularly in museums and other cultural institutions. Kind of in the midst of that career change, I got that master's degree in Shakespeare's hometown.
No big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I was walking past the house he was born in like every day and still pinching myself like after I'd been there for a year.
That's wild.
I remember you telling me about now I'm kind of conflating the things that I've heard you say on the podcast with things you've actually said to me. So forgive me if I'm
Right.
wrong.
All
But I
good.
remember you talking about like being at the same pub that actors from the RSC were like having a drink after the show. And that's just like insane to me. It's what a
Yeah.
life. That's amazing.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, the Royal Shakespeare Company is in Stratford-upon-Avon, where Shakespeare was born. And I guess to finish answering that question, yes, Shakespeare Shadows, I think, really combines the two skills of my two careers, millennial changing careers, of course. So, there's the journalist and the educator in that podcast. It is an interview-based podcast, but it is also a tool that I hope is useful to both theater makers and teachers.
Oh, I love that.
Well, why is it that you think there is this intersection between Disney lovers and theater lovers, and even specifically Shakespeare lovers? Because sometimes those can be, there's that whole fight, right, between the theater department and the English department as to like who owns Shakespeare. So
Right.
I'll put Shakespeare even outside of theater necessarily. But why do you think there's this intersection between people who love Disney, people who love Shakespeare, people who love theater?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get into that fight between the departments later. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But to really answer your question, I think at its core, they're just good stories.
Yeah.
All around good stories in both Disney and in theater, in Shakespeare. And I guess the other thing that comes to mind is in both theater going and in Disney, there's that communal experience. Like so many of us share Disney, whether it's going to the parks or watching the movies with siblings, with other family, with friends. And, one reason I think the pandemic was so tough on us is for those of us who love theater is like we miss that communal experience. Yeah, you could watch stuff at home, but it's about like going to the theater, being surrounded by other audience members, hearing the vocal reactions of others. I mean, Shakespeare productions so often really excel in directly engaging with the audience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there's something to that element of being a little crossover there.
I think about that a lot because I think sometimes I feel like when I'm in the parks, I'm in a show almost with the music. I don't know. It just feels,
even down to that's how Walt Disney imagined the parks, because that's why they're called cast members, is because it's a show.
Right.
Yeah.
That's such a fact that I've so just like integrated as a thing, but right. It's such
like,
an
no,
obvious answer.
It's because the parks are deemed like a production, like theater. It's so cool.
Yeah. What do you think, Emily, is the thing? Like, every time I see a Shakespeare production, I'm just blown away by how modern it feels, or I guess timeless is probably a better word. So what do you think about, back to that intersection between Shakespeare and Disney, what do you think it is about those two things that is timeless and that has endured through different generations and centuries in Shakespeare's case? What do you think that thing is, besides exactly what you said, which is that they're just damn good stories? What else do you think it is?
Yeah. So when it comes to Shakespeare with this idea of timelessness, I mean, one thing I like to mention is he was writing for the people of his own time. You can look at the plays and see, references to current events and all that. I am sure he had no idea his plays would be performed 400 years later. But yes, they have ended up being enduring. I think, people talk about that universality, that he really just got to something in the human condition. Like, it blows my mind that he didn't know about modern psychology when he was writing, but it feels like he did.
I know. And the way that he writes for some female characters, it just blows my mind. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff that feels dated or problematic, but on the whole, I think he was ahead of his time in many ways, or tapped into something that was timeless. As far as, things that are in that realm true about both Shakespeare and Disney, I think part of it is how those stories are passed along to the next generation. The fact that my parents enjoyed Shakespeare, so they took my brother and me as kids. I mean, of course, parents, or people, with in any parental role in their life, love getting to show kids the Disney movies that were huge for them. And so it's just something about these that create memories, and, in both the case of both Shakespeare and Disney, that people just want to share them.
Talking about, Shakespeare being tapped into something, I'm like, is he magical? I've always had that thought of like, is he a wizard?
You're a wizard, Shakespeare.
You're a wizard, really?
Yes.
Well, Emily, for somebody who's not as familiar with Shakespeare, how would you suggest that they get started? Like, what should they read, or should they go see something performed live first? Or what would be your best suggestion for someone to take the plunge or dip their toe?
Yeah. Well, I would say definitely go see it performed 100%. I mean, these were written, they were made to be seen, not read. And
for the English department people out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, read a synopsis before you go. I think that can be helpful. But just know that if you're reading it, you are getting like a sliver of the experience. Like, if you're someone who already considers yourself an English lit person, or, literature person in any way, sure, read it before you go see the play. But like, just know that it's meant to be seen. On stage, performed by actors. That's my take. Anyway.
Yes.
Is there a particular play that you would have them start with? Like, what do you think would be your like?
Ooh, yeah.
If you're gonna start with Shakespeare, start here. What would your one that you'd recommend people to see?
Yeah, the tips and tricks section might get to that, but I'll mention now that the first play I saw at age 8 was A Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah. Such a great entry point for kids. I mean, the magic in it, and just the silliness and shenanigans. I think kids latch onto that. It's a really great intro into Shakespeare. I think for adults, if you haven't, gotten exposed to Shakespeare, it can be a great first one too. There's definitely stuff in that play that like goes over little kids' heads, and adults can enjoy, more spicy stuff. That's kind of
Well, and now, there are the folks out there who might be interested in getting started in Shakespeare, and then there are people out there who might be flat out not interested in Shakespeare, might have had an experience with Shakespeare and don't like it. And I don't know if I would fully put myself in that camp, but my first experiences with Shakespeare were in English class. And even though I was always a theater kid, I didn't really consider myself a Shakespeare person until college. So what would you say to someone who's like, yeah, that's not for me?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know there are a lot of just so gifted and wonderful English teachers out there who are introducing kids to Shakespeare and, lighting that spark. But also, sadly, I know a lot of folks were turned off from Shakespeare by it not being taught well in their English classrooms. And I mean, hey, shout out to, organizations like the Folger Shakespeare Library who are bringing those resources to teach Shakespeare to more teachers. I think it's changed in recent decades with them offering more things. But if your only exposure to Shakespeare is reading it, or like your teacher forcing you and your classmates to read it aloud, kind of like what I was saying before, you're not getting the full experience, the full magic of Shakespeare. And, I'd also say that you hear the phrase Shakespeare is for everybody. On one hand, I agree. I believe Shakespeare can be accessed and enjoyed by everyone. I mean, these plays were pop culture in their day, after all. I don't consider them stuffy highbrow theater, and certainly in Elizabethan England, they wouldn't have been looked at like that. But I also at some point came across the phrase Shakespeare is for anybody who wants him.
That's so good. It's kind of like Ratatouille. And how Ego's final review is, he was like, I don't agree that anyone can cook, but I do believe that a good cook can come from anywhere. It feels like that.
Same vibe, same idea. Yeah, I should credit where that came from. Again, I'm mentioning the Folger. So the Folger Shakespeare Library's website, there's one blog post on there written by Austin Titchener. I think Titchener is how you say his name. So he co-founded, or he co-runs, the Reduced Shakespeare Company. And, if you're intrigued by that phrase, that idea, Shakespeare is for anybody who wants him, he has a whole blog post about that. So yes, I'd say, if you give Shakespeare a shot and you decide that you still don't like it, I'll be sad. But you also don't have to like Shakespeare. Like, he's a great writer. He's an important one, and one that influenced, so many writers in the century since he was writing. But he's also a dead white dude. He
honestly doesn't really care what you think.
He doesn't care. It won't hurt him if you don't like his plays. He'll be okay. But the other point there is, there are a lot of other voices and other artists, who I think we should be paying attention to and granting more opportunities to be staged and published. So, that's the, Shakespeare enthusiast telling you it's okay. It's not your favorite thing.
Well, speaking of your enthusiasm for Shakespeare, what are your 3 favorite Shakespeare plays?
Ooh,
like in no particular order. You don't have to go like 1, 2, 3, but
rank
just 3.
Yeah. Well, since you said 3, maybe I'll just go with my favorite from each genre. So, my favorite tragedy, and also my favorite overall, is Macbeth.
I think I knew this. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Busy.
And it's been my favorite since like age 12.
Oh, I love that. I think we have dark and twisted girlies in the room.
Oh boy. Yeah. I don't know, chicken and egg, what order stuff happened in, but it was around the same time I started watching horror movies.
I love that.
So I was all about it. Favorite comedy, I'd say As You Like It. Though if you ask me on a different day, I might say Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
My favorite of the history plays is Henry IV, Part 1.
Ooh.
I don't think I've read Henry
I think I'll be
IV,
talking
Part 1.
about a couple of those more in the tips and tricks section. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Goody.
And then who are your 3 favorite characters in Shakespeare? Not necessarily from those 3 favorite plays.
Well, you're talking to the person who decided to go like character by character on her podcast, and I have a list of like 70 characters I still want to do deep dives into.
Oh my God.
That is a tough question, but I think I would typically say Lady Macbeth. I mean, goes along with my favorite play, and just such a fascinating character all around. And, for Shakespeare, who wrote more great male parts originally written as male than female, you latch on to something like Lady M. Others, I'd say Ariel, very much not the same person as the Little Mermaid, but Ariel from The Tempest. So that character is a sprite, so like a fairy who's just learning what it is to be human. And I love that journey, that discovery.
Wait, how did I never put those two things together of both of those Ariels before?
I guess it's true of both of them in different ways.
Yeah, wow.
Wait, is that why they chose that name?
I don't know.
Because also,
like it was right under my nose.
Hold on, because also there is a tempest in The Little Mermaid.
There sure is.
There is.
Excuse. Wait a second.
Okay. I should know the answer to this question, but I don't know if it was.
Our foundations are being shaken. Are being shaken here at Fourth Portrait Podcast.
Shooketh right here. Okay.
Oh my God.
We're all making a note to actually look into that later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah,
you don't just pull Ariel out of nowhere for The Little Mermaid. For someone who wants to be human, learning how to be human, storm at sea sort of situation.
Handsome prince. Yeah.
I wouldn't say the Tempest Ariel wants to be human.
Right.
He or they is just by observing, learning what it means to be human. But
which is what Ariel does at the beginning. Yeah. She's observing, and then she becomes. Then she wants to be part of that world.
Right. And I still have yet to name a third.
You get one more.
This other one matches up with one of the other plays I mentioned as my favorite. But I mean, even more recently, this is maybe new. I'm finding that Prince Hal, aka King Henry V, is a favorite, and you can go for very different interpretations of him, and I think that's part of why I love it. Just he can be approached in different ways, and that doesn't mean he's a likable character all the time, but he's fascinating, and there's a lot going on with him. And fun fact, Shakespeare wrote more words for him than any other character. More than Hamlet.
Pocket that one, friends. That's your major tip and trick from this.
Next time you're hanging out with friends and you want to pull out a little something, there you go.
That's the one.
So before we get into a little bit more Disney-focused stuff, I did want to ask, so when you are on Shakespeare's Shadows, you always suggest such fantastic additional reading material to your listeners. So for those listening to this podcast who are a bit more experienced with Shakespeare, at least have a general knowledge, have seen some Shakespeare, or maybe read it, or even Shakespeare enthusiasts, do you have any bonus material, whether it's a book, a movie, an exhibit, because I know that you work in museums as well, anything that you would suggest that you think they would particularly enjoy?
I love the breadth of how you've opened that up. Anything from books to exhibits or whatnot.
Yes, anything to nerd out with.
Yes. Well, I guess since you mentioned exhibits, I mean, anytime you have the chance to see the first folio on display.
Yes, I did. I'm so lucky. I feel so lucky that I did.
Yeah. So this book is to thank for like half of Shakespeare's plays surviving. It was basically, for folks who don't know, his friends got together and decided to get together, print a collected edition of his works, which was not done at that time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good friends.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Connor,
Right.
I will do that for you.
Thank you.
If you have anything.
I won't do that for you. No, I'm joking.
I don't have anything
Not
for you to put
after
together.
last episode. No.
Let's see, book printed more recently. I guess I'd recommend Caroline. I know you already know about this one. It's called Searching for Juliet. And I think the subtitle is The Lives and Deaths of Shakespeare's First Tragic Heroine. So I was lucky to have the writer of that book on my podcast in the Juliet episode, Sophie Duncan. She is awesome. She has so much knowledge and enthusiasm for Juliet. So this book it's so insightful, and there are just so many details about the performance history of Juliet. So yeah.
I was hoping you would say that. I started reading that and I was like, num 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 num. It was so it was so fascinating.
Yes.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. And then I guess just kind of books that might feel a little more academic, although most of this guy's books are trade books. James Shapiro, one of the preeminent Shakespeare scholars, and he's got books that are deep dives into the years 1599 and 1606, I believe.
Oh, right.
Those, yeah. So what was going on in London and England more broadly when Shakespeare was writing some major plays in those years. He does also have a book about what's known as the authorship question called Contested Will. which I think is a good title.
Oh, that's such a good
that's
title.
really good.
Ah.
Right. Have you guys seen Rosalind or Rosaline? I guess it's pronounced
Yes,
that way as
and
well.
I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
I did not.
It's like
All
one
right,
of those
Connor,
things
put
that
it
I
on
saw
your
the
list.
poster for, and I was like, well, that's geared toward me.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
no, I'm thinking of Ophelia, the Daisy Ridley one.
I liked
Mhm.
that too. I liked
I know
I
that
you
did
too.
like
that one.
that too.
Okay, those are great. Those are great answers. Yes.
So moving more into the realm of Disney, this is just like wholly personal for you, Emily. What is your earliest Disney related memory?
Mm. I do have a pretty distinct first memory of Disney, and it's my first memory of going to see a movie in theaters.
Oh,
And that is The Lion King.
How
appropriate.
right. Yeah.
I can't even.
So I would have been like 4 or 5. And I really distinctly remember kind of the climactic moment on Pride Rock where everything's on fire. And that I just remember being really scared and I was really frightened. And I crawled into my mom's lap. And I also remember, I'm pretty sure I didn't know what the word murder meant then. Like Scar's calling Simba a murderer. And,
How
by that age,
interesting.
by that age, like kids are understanding what death is. But I guess that word specifically, that was when I learned that word.
Yeah.
So I remember being scared.
Wait, I'm obsessed.
Right,
Disney
right.
taught me murderer.
Murder.
Right.
I mean, also like us being the generation that also had Hunchback of Notre Dame. Disney taught us a lot of things.
Yes,
Disney taught us a lot of things we
Yeah.
might not have been ready for.
I feel like a lot of my earliest Disney memories are fear-based. As now that I think about it, like I was terrified of the forest scene in Snow White and Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah.
I went to see Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, and I thought the wolves were gonna like come out into the audience and take me. Like,
The wolves,
lots
baby.
of fear.
Well, I mean, also, my older sister Erin was very, very into Hocus Pocus, still is. But there was a day where she went up to my mom, little like 5-year-old Erin, and goes, "Mom, what's a virgin?" And that was all because of Hocus Pocus and the number of times that they talk about virgins. Thanks, Disney.
Thank you, Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually on that Lion King note, so for those of you who aren't getting the reference that we're talking about, I'm sure Emily, you might touch on this in a minute, but for those of you who don't know, the Lion King is inspired by Hamlet. So I have a question for you, Emily. If Disney was going to turn one Shakespeare play into an animated film, so like we're using the same title, not an inspired by situation like the Lion King, what do you think would be the best choice?
I mean, telling Disney they can change the title to like something a la Tangled,
Yes,
but
fair.
that's still the story of Rapunzel, sure.
Yes.
I'd say, I mentioned it before, but A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got the fairies and the shenanigans and all that. The other one that comes to mind is The Tempest. I mean, some things would need to be like cleansed or simplified or changed from that play to make it like G or PG. And I guess you'd have to decide how you want to handle like the problematic colonial elements of The Tempest. But
yes,
there's a lot of just literal magic, but also lovely family stories,
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
Ooh, I want both of those. I really want Disney to do that.
Honestly, I'm kind of thinking about like an animated Pyramus and Thisbe scene, and
I know.
I would
Yes.
like having Disney or even Pixar animators who are just like so good at like that kind of comedy doing that scene would be fantastic.
I agree.
Yep. All right, I'm buying my ticket now.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Is there a Shakespeare character to you that feels very Disney? And that can mean whatever it is that you want.
I mean, maybe this tells you that maybe I was onto something with my answer to the previous question, but you say that and I think Puck or even Nick Bottom. But yeah, like Puck, I feel like he would have some things to talk about with like Tinkerbell.
Oh, yes. Give me that crossover. I want that.
Yeah. Or Nick Bottom, just how earnest but ridiculous he is. Like, there's something there.
Wait,
but
now I kind of want like the fairy crossover of like the Disney fairies, like
Yes.
like what's her name, like Silver
Oh.
Mist and like all of them.
Oh,
But also like because the names fit perfectly, so you can
They
have like
really
Peas
do.
Blossom and all
They
and
really
put all of them
do.
in. I'm
Yes,
like,
exactly.
wait, I want to see that. I want to see like the PG-13 Disney fairies, like
Yeah.
the ones who are sort of like exiled by the Tinkerbell versions of the fairies and their antics. I want that.
yes,
Uh-huh.
please.
Yes, ready for that one now too. But yeah, can I throw that question back at you guys? Are there any other Shakespeare characters that feel very Disney to you?
I always what my answer to the previous question, I would really like to see Disney try to do As You Like It. So like I just love Rosalind so much. I love
Yes.
Celia so much. I actually
Same.
I get very emotional about certain Disney characters, and I feel like Rosalind and Celia are those Shakespeare characters for me. Like I think about them and I don't know what it is. I want to cry when I think about them, and I
Right.
want to see that duo as
Yeah.
the next, like in the quote unquote like Disney princess lineup. I want them in there.
Mhm.
So I would
Just
love that.
Yeah, the Forest of Arden too, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I feel like I've maybe Titus Andronicus.
Yes.
joking.
Do it.
like first R-rated Disney animated
Right.
movie.
No, I sort of like always go back and forth between Much Ado, which I think could be super fun as a Disney movie, but I could also see that going really well as like a Disney live action movie.
Ooh, yeah.
And then also Cymbeline.
Yeah. Oh my God, the evil queen. Give it to
Yes.
me.
But
Yes.
a Shakespeare character that feels very Disney to me, Malvolio.
Yeah.
Malvolio feels so
Yes.
Disney to me.
Mhm.
Like I can see the animators like getting together and like doing the character design for Malvolio. It would just be so, because they would find that right line between the comedy that's very like surface apparent about Malvolio, but also like the sadness about the
Yeah.
character, like the
Mhm.
sort of like heartbreak in it.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd get a lot of really, really good layers in an animated version of Malvolio.
Yes.
I want all of
They would have to
these.
pick just the right color for those yellow stockings.
They
I was
would
going to say
have
the
to pick
costume design would be
just
out
the
of
right
this
color.
world.
right.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I want all of those. Okay. So now just some quick, little, simple, rapid fire Disney questions. Favorite, now that we've talked about Shakespeare characters, favorite Disney character?
Just one. I have to pick just one.
Only one. We
Oh
like
my
to
gosh.
torture everybody when they come on here, so only
Right,
one.
right. Okay. Well, the first one that comes to mind, and this maybe just goes back to my childhood favorite, is Ariel.
Yes. Yes. See, I like hearing everybody's gut answer as
Right.
the
That's
true
my gut
answer.
answer.
All right, and again, one answer, your gut answer.
Okay,
First thing that comes
okay.
to mind. Favorite Disney song?
I'll make a man out of you.
Good choice.
Oh,
Like,
I didn't expect that. I don't know why,
Ah.
but it's so good.
It's
Donny
good.
Osmond.
Donny
I-
freaking Osmond.
yes.
My man.
The song itself, and just where the point you get Mulan to by the end of that song, using her smarts to solve the problem.
I freaking
So-
love that movie.
And so for this one, you can say a few. I'll let you say a couple for this one. Or maybe there's one that comes to mind. Like when you were a kid, was there a specific Disney movie that really like had a hold on you, or were there a couple at different times?
Or like you watched over and over and over and over again to the point where your parents had to take the VHS away from you. Not that ever
Right,
happened
yeah.
to me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we absolutely had our collection of VHSs in those, big plastic cases. So,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. I mentioned Ariel because I think The Little Mermaid I absolutely adored. I mean, it helped for me. I think part of that was growing up around the beautiful Puget Sound area and just being, and so Moana I so identified with too, that she just feels called to the ocean and all that. But as for the other movie that was huge when I was a kid, it was Snow White.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I had short dark hair. as a kid. So
as did I. I was Snow White for many different Halloweens.
Same. We have photos of me where, like, the first Halloween, that yellow skirt of the dress goes down to my ankles, and then by like a Halloween or two later, it's at my knees because I refuse to wear anything else. So.
Wait, we have to dig up those photos. That's
we
adorable.
should. Yeah.
So we always get asked by our listeners which Disney property should be brought to the stage next. What would you like to see brought to the stage next from Disney?
Yeah. Well, I was just mentioning Moana. I think I'll go with that. Right?
Oh.
Connor's already like overcome.
I love Moana.
Yes. I mean, I think about what would be, I'm sure it would be a challenge, but once they figure it out, it would be like stunning. Figuring out how to do a, story that mostly takes place out on the sea. Mm-hmm. Although, Caroline, maybe Connor, you know this too, but Caroline knows I've been gushing about a play that is now going to Broadway called Swept Away, that pretty much that whole play takes place out at sea. So it can be done.
Well, and Life of Pi was on Broadway.
Yeah.
And that takes place out at sea.
Yeah.
And we could have a little Pua puppet of some kind.
Yes.
Hey, hey, puppet.
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
Puppets. I want puppets, like Lion King level puppets.
I will go to puppet school if I can just puppet Pua. Like,
yes.
I'll be hey, hey.
That's a dream.
Yes.
Wait, we would cause hell and chaos.
I want to play hey, hey on Broadway.
Okay. Well, these are our dreams. These are our dreams. Make them happen, world.
Right.
And Emily, before we let you take it away, just more of a sentimental question for you. So we talk a lot, especially when we talk about our trips to the parks, especially about those really special, like goosebump-inducing moments that we've had. In the last episode, I talked about when I was in the Disney parks most recently, and I was on the Carousel of Progress, one of the attractions with a famous song. Like, everyone in the audience was sort of just quietly singing along, like people of all ages, and I just thought it was so magical. So can you share a moment that you've had like that related to Shakespeare or related to theater in general that just felt magical to you?
Yes. I mean, there's so many specific theater productions I can mention, but I guess I'll kind of go the direction of where I get that goosebumps kind of moment. For me, happens a lot at historical sites, like going to a place where here's where the history happened and the past feels like almost visceral in some way. So related to Shakespeare, I mean, that happens at Shakespeare's birthplace and the reconstruction of the Globe Theater. But I guess what I'll make my actual answer, and this is still Shakespeare related, is Louisa May Alcott's Orchard House. Have either of you been?
No, I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah. Well, come visit me. We'll go. We'll make it happen.
Caroline,
I want to go there so bad. I talk about this all the time. I want to see Orchard House. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay. We're going to make it happen. Yeah, I mean, if going into that house, it feels like you're walking into the book of Little Women. And that includes seeing the spaces where Alcott, who inspired the character Jo, where she and her sisters performed Shakespeare, like in their living room for friends and family. So I went to Orchard House for the first time on Labor Day weekend of 2021. And especially when, the wonderful tour guide talked about, in this room, they would perform Shakespeare for their family and such. I got goosebumps. I was tearing up. I was thinking about us with the cursed players. And
my God.
Right. Yes. So.
Oh, that's such a good one. And that was very unexpected. I need to go. Oh my God. I feel upset.
Right.
All right. Well, Emily, we're going to hand it over to you, the pro. Please take us into our little actual tips and tricks section of the episode and give us a little, as you phrase it to me, like if you like this Disney movie, maybe you'll enjoy this piece of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Take it away.
All right. So I'll preface all this with a couple hopefully quick things. So firstly, just thought it was, worth pointing out that most, but not all of the plays I'm going to recommend are comedies, which makes sense, I think. I mean, comedy in Shakespeare's time, just for folks who don't know, it's not necessarily about it being funny, But in Shakespeare's time, it was most defined as a play with a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could take us down the rabbit hole of like, are these endings really happy? But I won't do that now.
I do love that conversation. You'll have to
right,
come back for that.
Right, yes. But ostensibly they have happy endings. And, for a lot of the main characters, they end up getting married at the end. So there's a lot of that in Disney.
Yes,
That's very true.
And for some, but not all of my recommendations, I also have suggestions of productions you can watch. So,
yay.
Yeah. So, if I'm going to really heed my advice of don't just read it, go see the play. I feel like I got to direct you somewhere for that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
So some are films and some are stage productions that were recorded. For the latter, those can be found on streaming sites like Marquee TV, digitaltheater.com, and National Theater Live at home.
National Theater Live, baby.
Yes.
Love it so much.
Yes. So some suggestions of things available to stream or check out on DVD from your local library. But I also just really recommend that folks take the chance to see these plays live in person. Look up what's happening at your local theaters if you haven't yet. For anyone listening who's in the US, one cool and I've discovered rather unique thing about the US is there's a lot of free Shakespeare in the Park in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like my British friends told me that's not really so much of a thing in the UK.
How interesting. I kind of love that.
Yeah. So I guess 'tis the season for
It is perfect timing.
This is perfect timing.
I love that.
Timing.
Yeah. Alrighty. So first I'll get one of my more obvious recommendations out of the way, just going over one of the greatest hits first, and then I'll get into some deeper cuts later. If you like the element of magic, like literal magic in a lot of Disney films, the fairies, the pixie dust, the spells, the curses, some movies like Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, Beauty and the Beast. If you've already listened to the first, I guess, section of this episode, then it won't be a surprise that I recommend the Shakespeare play A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Gotta, make sure we cover that one. So
absolutely.
Yeah. There's a forest full of fairies and much of the plot revolves around the juice of a flower that acts like a love potion and causes all sorts of chaos. If you're a theater maker or an actor, I would understand if you're sick of Midsummer. It gets performed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for two productions I'd direct folks to, ones that you can access now. The 1999 film, it's got such a good cast that, I could list a few off, but
with Stanley Tucci and
Exactly.
Michelle Pfeiffer and
Christian Bale
and
as
Rupert
Demetrius.
Everett, right?
Yes, as
Christian
Oberon.
Bale. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell as Francis Flute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That movie was stacked.
It's so stacked. And I don't know if there are any Pushing Daisies fans out there, but Anna Friel.
Yes, I was
or Anna
obsessed
Friel.
with Pushing Daisies.
Yeah, she is Hermia in that.
Of
so,
course.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Wait, who was bottom? Was that Kevin Kline?
Kevin Kline.
It was Kevin Kline,
yes. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. And that film is gorgeous. It's set, I think, in the late 1800s, and it notably features bicycles in an era when they were kind of still a new thing.
Amazing.
There's just fun with that. And then I'll mention also, I recommend checking out the 2019 Bridge Theater production. So it's stage production that was recorded. I'd say watch that, especially if, whether you've seen the show before, you've heard about it, and if how Titania's story ends in that play didn't ever quite sit right with you. So I won't spoil exactly what they do, but watch this one with Gwendolyn Christie as Titania.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot. Oh my God.
Wait, I'm going to hyperventilate right now.
Oh my God.
Right. So those are my recommendations. Again, Midsummer's a great entry point into Shakespeare. If you're a total Shakespeare newbie, that's, especially if you like the magic of Disney, that's my first recommendation. So next up, if you like The Lion King, or you likely already know that it's kind of an adaptation of Hamlet, but I'm going to direct folks to another Shakespeare play. So if you like The Lion King, I highly recommend you check out Henry IV Part 1.
Great call.
And if
My God.
And if you find you like that play, you can continue on with the story in Henry IV Part 2 and Henry V.
Yes.
So like in some ways, The Lion King reminds me more of Henry IV than it does of Hamlet, or it feels like a mashup of the two. So like if you think about Simba coming of age, especially once he's run away from Pride Rock, I think definitely has the vibes of Prince Hal, who eventually becomes King Henry V.
Yeah.
So, if you're all about the scenes with Timon and Pumbaa, then you're going to love Prince Hal and Falstaff.
I was going to say, is Pumbaa Falstaff? Because I'm obsessed with that.
I think basically that's what's happening. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll mention too that for fans of the hero's journey, not just in The Lion King, but in things like Star Wars and just about every Marvel movie, which all now falls under Disney.
Yeah.
That's another, kind of way I think you'd like Henry IV. The production I'd say folks should check out. Also, the one that probably most people would have access to in one way or another is titled The Hollow Crown.
Right.
So that's, I don't know if the word TV movie is even used anymore. It was kind of a
Right?
TV
Is that
movie
funny?
series, but like awesome production value, just such moving, touching performances. So it's Tom Hiddleston as Hal, aka Henry V, Sir Simon Russell Beale as Falstaff, and it's Scar himself, Jeremy Irons, as Henry IV.
Oh my God, another connection. This is so funny. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. But also, if you ever have the chance to see these plays, collectively known as the Henriad, performed live on stage, especially if you get to see them performed in rep, I'd say definitely go see that.
And just for folks at home who might not know what that means, can you explain what rep is?
Sure. It's basically more than one production is going on at once. So you as an audience member could see more than one show in 1 week, and it's the same cast. Or a lot of the same cast members.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like Oregon Shakespeare Festival, what I grew up with, the appreciation for actors being chameleons, I think came from them performing stuff in rep. But yeah, so next I'll give a recommendation based on a live action Disney movie.
Ooh.
If you like The Parent Trap.
And we do.
Yes.
And we do.
Who doesn't? How could you not? Either film, either version. But yeah, so I have a few recommendations, but firstly, the 2 Shakespeare plays with twins. So yeah, if you didn't know, Shakespeare did write a couple plays with twins in them, Twelfth Night and the Comedy of Errors. And both of those plays have twins that are separated and then reunited. And I mean, I'll just say it. I think most people would agree with me that Twelfth Night is the better of the 2 plays, and it is more frequently performed.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I mean, the thing, especially if it's the twins of it all that you like, the thing that Comedy of Errors has going for it is that it's not 1, but 2 sets of twins.
Right.
So
right.
all the more confusion, all the more mistaken identity situations, just great farcical fun in that one. But for folks who love The Parent Trap, and especially if you're already familiar with Shakespeare and looking for a bit more of a deep cut, I'd also recommend Love's Labour's Lost.
Ooh.
So it's one of Shakespeare's lesser performed plays. The first time I read it and watched it was when I was in grad school. So it's not one that I encountered growing up or anything. I think just in that play, the way the women are pulling one over on the men, and it has some same vibes of all the shenanigans the twins get into on the camping trip and stuff in The Parent Trap.
Yes.
In the Lindsay Lohan version. So I will say Love's Labour's Lost is not the most beginner friendly play. The B plot is really dependent on like a lot of Elizabethan era specific wordplay. That even my eyes glaze over a little bit.
That's nice to hear, honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, a great one to turn to if you've already seen some Shakespeare. And yeah, I'd call Love's Labour's Lost, a hidden gem is how it felt to me when I first encountered it. So,
yes, I love that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. If you like Hercules, I mean, you should know that Shakespeare wrote a handful of plays set in ancient Rome. And, the recommendation I'm going to give, it's not so much if you like the hero's journey in Hercules. Again, I'd say if that's the part you like, I'll direct you to my previous recommendation of Henry IV. But if it's the backdrop of Greek mythology and all that you like, you should check out one or any of Shakespeare's plays set in ancient Rome. In particular, I'd say Julius Caesar. So, yeah, now, again, that's not the hero's journey story. I'd say there's a lot of juicy ambiguity in the characters. Shakespeare, I think, intentionally crafted the play to make it unclear who we should be rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
As for which productions to watch, if it's the ancient Rome period setting you really like, you probably should go for the 1953 film with Marlon Brando.
Ooh.
But if you're down for Julius Caesar in modern day dress, which I think can also be very powerful, there are 2 productions I got to mention. They are both stage productions that were filmed. One was the 2012 production staged by the Don Mar Warehouse, starring Dame Harriet Walter as Brutus.
Oh my God, I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Harriet Walter. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not? But
Ugh.
yeah, so that one has an all-female cast, and it's kind of one big play within a play. It imagines that all these women are in a women's prison. So each actor, So each actor kind of has 2 layers of characters they're playing: the inmate character and then the character in the Shakespeare play, which is just impressive to watch. And then the other one I'd suggest, which I was fortunate to see in person, is the 2018 one at the Bridge Theater. So the same theater company as the Midsummer I mentioned before. So that's got Ben Whishaw as Brutus, Adjoa Ando as Casca, David Morrissey from The Walking Dead as Mark Antony. And how they staged the production around the audience, and that is amazing and really stuck with me. In the audience, the standing room part I chose, I felt like one of the plebeians. So maybe that's another way I'd recommend that, is if you like the immersive elements of certain parts of Disney parks, you'd appreciate seeing that, even if, watching the recording is not the same as being there.
Good one.
Okay, I'm going to give one more in-depth recommendation before I kind of shift into more rapid fire approach.
Yay.
Here. So if you like Mulan, I highly recommend As You Like It.
Oh yeah,
that is such a good recommendation. That is so solid. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we were talking about how we adore Rosalind, and so, but just to kind of lay out this info, if for folks not familiar with this play, the main character named Rosalind spends much of the play disguised as a man, all to protect the safety of herself and her cousin Celia, who's like a sister to her. I'll mention too, the other major role Shakespeare wrote that's a woman disguised as a man is Viola in Twelfth Night. And in that one, I guess Mulan fans would appreciate, they get a little sword fight in there, but that's kind of played for laughs more so than being an epic moment.
Yeah.
But in As You Like It, compared to Viola, I'd consider Rosalind much more of an orchestrator, someone who's calling the shots. It really feels like she holds some power. So kind of not unlike Mulan is discovering her strength and ingenuity.
So
I love it.
Yeah. I want to mention that I also recommend As You Like It for Disney fans who love Enchanted and Frozen. In particular, the elements of those movies that kind of interrogate and push back against the Disney trope of love at first sight. The whole you can't marry a man you just met thing.
Yeah.
And even Frozen 2 for the Enchanted Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want more detail on that, I'll mention that. There is a secondary couple in As You Like It who are very much a love at first sight couple. But what I adore about the primary couple, Rosalind and Orlando, what makes Rosalind really remarkable for her time is that she initiates and engages in what is basically marriage prep. Like, she's getting Orlando to go through pre-Cana with her.
Yes,
she is.
Yeah. She's getting him to think about, okay, what would married life actually be like? She's asking him things like, if your wife is in a bad mood, how are you going to handle that? And that is so little seen in earlier Disney and in a lot of, Shakespeare characters that just feels remarkable. So.
I'm obsessed.
It.
Rosalind is putting Orlando through pre-Cana, which is freaking amazing.
It's so good.
So if you're looking for a good production of As You Like It, there's a recording of the 2019 stage production by the Royal Shakespeare Company that is solid. The actress playing Rosalind, I think, is really the highlight of that one. But I'd also say one that, you can't go watch right now, unless you're listening to this at a very specific time and place. But I want to mention, I'd say also keep your eye out for the version of As You Like It that combines Shakespeare's original text with Beatles music. So this version, As You Like It with the Beatles music, I guess you could call it an adaptation, but again, it uses the original text. It originated at Bard on the Beach in Vancouver, Canada. I saw it in Washington, D.C. this past December. Its next production will be in London, Ontario this October and November. I think that's the only other staging of it lined up right now, but I would be surprised if it's not done again in more places in the future, because it's absolutely a delight. Alrighty, on to a few other recommendations that I'll give folks in more rapid fire style. If you relish your Disney villains, I'd recommend Richard III or Othello, which features Iago, probably the most like monologuing, here's my evil plan villain of them all.
And also no coincidence that Iago,
right,
the parrot from Aladdin, is named Iago.
Yes.
This is another one of those Shakespeare names.
Peeling back the layers of the onion,
y'all.
here, yeah.
That one I knew. That one has to, because he's constantly blabbing away the evil plan.
Yeah, he is.
Right. And if you love Disney movies that build up to heartfelt family reunions like Finding Nemo or Tangled, I again recommend Twelfth Night, but also The Winter's Tale.
I love The Winter's Tale.
Exit Pursued by a Bear. Throw Brave in there.
Right?
Right? Yeah. I could, it's very, very sad, but I could see Disney taking a crack at that too. With the magical statue thing going on.
Yeah. If you like the romance that begins with playful bickering or bantering between the couples, like in Princess Diaries 2, or I'd say there's plenty of that in Aladdin and like The Princess and the Frog too.
Yes.
If you're into all that, I would of course highly recommend you watch Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
Yes.
Beatrice and Benedict in that one. I feel like I should mention, if you like all the Disney movies with animals, I'm going to tell you now, there's not a lot of the furry and feathered in Shakespeare plays. I mean, it's just a matter of practicality, putting on plays in the 16th and 17th century. But you should know that The Two Gentlemen of Verona has a dog named Crab.
Yes. And the times when I've seen people use a real dog, which isn't as often as you would think, it's so delightful. I saw this bulldog play Crab, and it was the best thing I've ever seen.
I love bulldogs on stage. They're the cutest.
Yes,
more
more bulldogs on stage.
Yes. That's our biggest call to action from this episode. More bulldogs.
More bulldogs.
If you like spooky Disney movies like Nightmare Before Christmas and Hocus Pocus, go watch Macbeth right now. Right now. I mean, for those who don't know, there's witches, there's prophecies, there's, fair warning, a lot of blood.
But also, if you like Disney's Gargoyles, the TV show, also go watch Macbeth, because Macbeth from Shakespearean lore as a character is in Gargoyles, as is the fairy realm from Midsummer, including Oberon, Titania. Like, brilliant.
I forgot about that.
Yes, there's so much
that on
Shakespeare.
Disney Channel?
It was on Disney Channel, and now it's on Disney Plus, and there are rumors of a live action adaptation, but that is like, if you like Macbeth, if you like Midsummer, watch Gargoyles, and if you like Gargoyles, then watch Midsummer and watch Macbeth so that you understand
vice versa.
it.
That's a reverse direction recommendation for me. We didn't have cable when I was growing up. So I missed all the Nickelodeon shows, all the Disney Channel shows.
You have to, oh my God.
Now's your time, take it back.
Go watch Gargoyles. It's so good.
I did, there was a production of The Tempest that I house managed for at the Seattle Shakespeare Company. And I know the actor playing Caliban in that got influence from Gargoyles and from Gollum.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. There's another one. If you like Caliban, there you go.
Yes.
It all goes back to Gargoyles. I love that.
As for which Macbeth to go watch, I think I'd say the Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand one is probably what I'd direct folks to as far as what's available on streaming. But my favorite Macbeth productions tend to be those I see on stage, like especially in small, intimate theaters, and those don't often get taped. So if you like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, so if you like the kind of heavier themes of that one, and if you're up for grappling...
Richard III?
That's not what I was going to mention, but I think that would fit too.
Measure for Measure?
Measure for Measure, yes. Yes, I was, I thought one of you would be able to guess.
It's the lust for me.
Get out.
So, yeah, that's one with, just like religious themes and an antagonist who's super self-righteous and really actually, just not a good guy. If you enjoy the chaos and the antics of the Muppets or Aristocats, I'd again direct you to Midsummer Night's Dream or Comedy of Errors, but also to Merry Wives of Windsor.
Ooh.
So Falstaff of the Henry IV plays is in that one. And it's just like out in the countryside and, Windsor, as much as that was the country then. And it's one of like Shakespeare's few plays that doesn't deal with the court at all. And just, I think everyone's a little looser in that play. And there's fun,
Couldn't
silly
you
stuff
just
going on.
see, like, I could totally see the Muppets, Merry Wives of Windsor.
Right.
One human actor.
Yes.
And everyone else is a Muppet.
Yes.
But also,
Come on.
that's such a good for Aristocats, like taking them all out to the country and like, that's a good
But
one.
yeah, I would 100% see the Muppet version of Merry Wives of Windsor.
Me too.
I would honestly see the Muppet version of any of these plays.
Of any Shakespeare play, yeah.
And last but not least, if you're a sucker for the forbidden love that's in Pocahontas and The Little Mermaid, you probably already know you got to watch Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which there are fantastic productions that are happening or about to happen because Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor are about to do it on Broadway. Everybody's doing R&J right now. I mean, when are they not doing R&J? Let's be real.
Right. But it does feel like a number of major R&J productions right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing I think, Caroline and I have talked about, and I cover this on my podcast, Romeo and Juliet is a story that feels like everybody knows. So I don't really have to get into the why of this. But if I'm in the realm of like convincing you to watch it, if you were resistant to it, I'll mention, if you are prone to dismiss it as a story about two idiot, horny teenagers, I'm not saying it's not that, but the more time I spend with Romeo and Juliet with this play, I just discover or appreciate more layers, more depth. I mean, the poetry, the language is some of Shakespeare's best, so it's a really good one.
I've seen so
which
many...
version? Me too. Which version has stood out for you, Emily? That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, folks already know the couple, iconic film versions that are out
like
there,
the Zeffirelli
and
one,
Lermans. But I'll shout out one more Royal Shakespeare Company production that I believe, Caroline, you've also seen.
Yeah.
Did you get to see it in person in Stratford or in London?
I saw it when it was in London.
Nice.
Yeah, when it was at the National. Yeah.
And then, Caroline, did you see the Orlando Bloom? Was it Orlando Bloom and Condola Rashad? Yeah.
I did. Condola was so... I mean, he actually did a great job too, but Condola Rashad sent me to another planet.
I mean, she always
she
does.
Was beautiful.
My favorite version of Romeo and Juliet is the Hallmark movie, The Secret World or Secret Lives of the Leprechauns.
What is this?
Anybody?
I can't say I have.
That movie rocked.
But that production, where did you see that? The one that Emily was talking about. So you had Ballygill on Shakespeare's Shadows. When did you see him as Romeo?
So same production, but just so folks know, the RSC's productions often are done in Stratford and then they move them to London. So I saw the show in Stratford while I was studying there in 2018. Yeah, I think that one's available on like digitaltheater.com or stuff like that. But I'd also say like just go to YouTube and watch the balcony scene, the so-called balcony scene in that production. So you can just like go search for RSC Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2, and just see that one scene. Like that will sell you on that production. They're so good, the two of them. It's Karen Fishwick who plays Juliet with Valerie Gill's
she
Romeo.
was wonderful.
Yeah, they mined that scene for like every bit of earnestness
they
and
really
awkwardness.
did.
And it's so sweet. And so
I kind of remember seeing it and thinking like, well, there's nothing else to really do with that now that you two have done that. So why bother?
Yeah. And a little bit has ruined like all other balcony scenes.
Yeah,
for me.
I agree.
Yeah. So yes, those are my recommendations.
Those
my
are
tips and tricks.
fantastic. Oh my gosh. Thank
I
you
loved it
so
so
much.
Of course.
Those are
I had fun with that.
those were freaking fantastic.
So fun.
Fantastic recommendations. So before we wrap up, we're just going to do a quick little game with you, Emily. A couple seasons ago, we played a game called Goodbye So Soon, where you get a list of things and you can only keep one and the rest are burned from existence.
Gosh.
So without further ado, let's begin.
Yeah. This sounds painful. This sounds like
it will be. Like I said, we like to
Okay.
torture you before you go. And listen, some of these categories we've touched on in some of the earlier parts of this conversation and some of the questions we asked you. So I would say look at it through this lens. Think of it as not necessarily your favorite, but like the one that you don't save, the rest disappear.
Like you have the first folio and you can only save one of each and the rest of the pages disintegrate in your hands.
Yes, forever.
This is going to send my like time travel loving brain into like what happens if you remove one and
exactly.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Here we go. You can only keep one comedy. Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, and The Comedy of Errors.
Even though I wouldn't call this my favorite comedy, I'm going to have to save Midsummer because that is what got me into Shakespeare. Like, who would I be today?
Oh, right. So you wouldn't be who you are today. Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. You can only keep one tragedy. Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my gosh. I can't. Oh my gosh. Maybe I'm going a little bit, my brain's going to the same place as the last one. Again, not my favorite, not the best, and you already know the Scottish play is my favorite, but I will keep Romeo and Juliet because that has just become iconic. I think so many people our age got into Shakespeare through the Baz Luhrmann film, like just preserving Shakespeare for the people.
It's the gateway.
The entry point. I gotta save Romeo and Juliet. I mean, I guess you enter into Shakespeare land and there's no more tragedies left, but
how terrible.
But there's something there. So.
This really is the darkest timeline that we're creating for you. I'm so sorry.
Oh dear.
Okay. You can only keep one romance. Pericles, Cymbeline, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest.
Yes. The category that the genre that is not part of the first folio, but
the strange category. Yes.
I adore The Tempest, but there's a lot that's just kind of cringe right now, or just has been cringe for some time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save The Winter's Tale.
Yes.
Good old Hermione.
I think I would too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You can only keep one history. Richard II, Richard III, Henry V, or all three parts of Henry VI.
Just to be chaotic.
Right.
That was Caroline. You can tell Caroline has a special place in her heart for Henry VI.
So again, timeline, time travel, loving brain is going like, well, Henry VI, at least two of the three parts were Shakespeare's first plays he wrote, quite likely. So I'm like, how would that mess stuff up? Are we going with like they never existed, or we're just like squashing their availability?
We'll go with it doesn't affect any of the other. So like Even if the Henry VI plays are gone, you still got Henry V exactly the way that it was.
Okay.
Okay.
And Richard III and Richard II. But I feel like you're going to choose Henry V.
No, actually.
Oh.
If you had said Henry IV, I probably would have saved that. But, and I only like whatever appreciation I have for Henry V, I think it was strengthened by
Henry IV.
Like
you get
knowing.
Henry IV. That's a freebie.
Yeah, for
right.
free.
So I'm going to save, you said Richard III as one of them, right?
It is.
Ask me tomorrow and I could say something different. But right now I'm like, we can't lose that one. Like,
Yeah.
Bye-bye Crispin's Day.
Yeah, sorry.
Bye-bye.
Sorry.
Bye-bye Band of Brothers.
It hurts. I can't. Now you're making me regret it.
Then this next question will be interesting then. So you can only keep one villain.
Oh, this is really bad, Caroline. This is really
this
mean.
one is yucky. I'm so sorry. We've got Iago from Othello, Tamara from Titus Andronicus, Richard III from Richard III, or Lady M from Macbeth. I'm so sorry.
Why are you doing this to me? My gut takes me to maybe being able to narrow it down to Lady M and Richard III.
Iago went bye-bye.
Iago did go bye-bye. I mean, Richard III, I mean, what? He's the protagonist, but he's villainous. So,
Right.
But I mean, I should really look into at some point, like, what folks say about how much that character influenced villains. Just really the whole, like, knowing their psyche and where they're coming from, why they're the way they are.
Yeah.
I can't.
We're going to break her. We're breaking her. It's happening. We broke Emily.
Even given all I just said, I'm going to keep Lady M.
Good for you.
Yes, come on. Good for you.
Wait, I kind of want to now put these questions up to every like Shakespeare scholar and just like
watch
them
squirm.
I love watching everybody squirm.
All right, you can only keep one couple. Romeo and Juliet from Romeo and Juliet, Orlando and Rosalind from As You Like It, Antony and Cleopatra from Antony and Cleopatra, or Macbeth and Lady Macbeth from Macbeth.
So again, Beatrice and Benedict are safe.
Yes, they are.
They're safe.
They're safe.
Yes.
Okay. My gut is saying keep Rosalind and Orlando. I mean, for the reasons I said before.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I just love them.
Romeo and Juliet obviously is like an iconic play and story, but I mean,
it doesn't really work out for them as a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, the couple itself. Yeah.
Actually,
this was
outside of
correct.
Orlando and Rosalind, it really doesn't really go super great for anybody in this.
It really doesn't.
I'm picking the happy ending. The couple who are
I
probably
like
going to be
that.
good partners to each other. So.
All right. You can only keep one O line. So here we go. Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant. From Measure for Measure. Oh God, that I were a man, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. From Much Ado About Nothing. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. From Romeo and Juliet. Or, oh, wonder, how many goodly creatures are there here? Oh, brave new world that has such people in't.
I adore all of them. And until you said the last one, I thought I knew what I was going to pick. But
aren't they all so good? Those are some of the best. Those are some of my
Yes.
favorite lines.
Yes. Well, I, adore that moment with Miranda in The Tempest, but I'm going to go with Beatrice's line.
Yeah.
Just one of Shakespeare's just so memorable moments of, laying out how much it kind of sucked to be a woman then. Like,
Yes.
he was a dude, but he recognized that.
Yeah, right? And every time I've seen a Beatrice say that line, whether it's like in class in acting school, whether it's at the public theater, I want to like yell.
Right.
It's like it gets you right in the chest when she says that.
I mean, like that's how when Danielle Brooks did it, like the entire place just like erupted.
Yes.
All these women were just like screaming, and I was like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I just got goosebumps. I love
so
that line.
good.
What a good choice.
And your last one, you can only keep one Disney
Cathartic.
movie.
Yes, exactly.
Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and Tangled.
I'm going to go with Beauty and the Beast, which I haven't given nearly enough love to in our conversation so far. That, by the way, going back to first Disney memory, what my parents tell me is that's the first movie they took me to. I do not have memory of this. But, but yeah, I so much enjoyed your, what did you call it, Beast Mode episode. That was hilarious.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, and I mean, identifying with Belle and her just being a reader and longing for adventure, like that just, my gut tells me to save that one. I bet Belle loves Shakespeare too.
She does, because in Beauty and the Beast, they're reading Romeo and Juliet because she's teaching him to read, and he's doing two households both alike in dignity, but he says two instead of two, which is freaking hilarious. And I'm like, yeah, no, Belle's a Shakespeare girly.
Yes.
Of course she is. Of course she is.
Yes, so I had given you guys the heads up that I have 2 trivia questions for you. I think now I can throw those at you.
Yes, please.
Yes, so both Shakespeare and Disney related trivia questions, putting both Conor and Caroline to the test.
Oh no.
Oh my
and
goodness,
the listeners too, see if you can answer this. So, who is the one character in a Shakespeare play who also appears in a Disney animated film? So to be clear, like, it's a speaking role and it's the same character, like same person, not just 2 characters with the same name.
Oh my God. Okay, give me a sec. With this being the Venn diagram of my interests, I am ashamed, honestly.
It's not, well, whatever. I can give hints if you want.
Yeah, give us a hint.
Okay. This occurred to me while listening to your podcast season 4 premiere.
Is he a character from Robin Hood?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it would be
oh!
Prince John or King Richard.
Yes.
It would be King Richard, yeah.
Prince
Oh
John.
my God,
Prince John.
right.
Prince John, who is the same John as King John.
Right.
Yeah, so historically the same person.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's good.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one.
This next one might be less of a stumper, but you guys got there. You got there. All right. Other trivia question for you. A Disney Renaissance era film quotes a Shakespeare play in one of its songs. Which film was it, and which play was it quoting?
I know that this isn't it, but I just have to say it so I can get it out of my brain. No. You know what? No.
I want to know what it is now.
For a second, I was on the train of like thinking of phrases that like Shakespeare invented. I'm like, did Shakespeare invent the phrase Wheel of Fortune? And then I was starting to think about Circle of Life, but it's not that. It's not that.
And I mean,
okay,
maybe, one of those idioms that go back to Shakespeare show up somewhere else. But there's one very specific like piece of text.
I'm feeling like is there something that Lumiere says?
You're getting closer, getting warmer.
Like I feel like it's in Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Oh
wait, is it literally in the song Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
Not that song, different song.
Okay, wait.
I need 6 eggs. That's too expensive.
That's too expensive.
But expensive it's contracted to fit the pentameter.
Must be a pentameter.
I'm joking.
I'm gonna pee myself.
Oh my God.
I need 6 eggs. That's too expensive. Okay.
I can tell you the song if you want.
No, not yet.
Okay. Okay.
No. We have to get this.
Okay.
We will.
Oh no, it's gonna be in the mob song. It's got to be in the mob song, right?
So it's time to take some action, boys.
You could just sing the whole song.
Oh, yes. It's Screw Your Courage to the Sticking Place.
That is it. Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lady M.
Exactly.
Yes, I knew it.
Yep.
Nice.
There are your trivia questions.
Those were fantastic questions.
Emily, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
so fun and
I had a
funny and
blast.
interesting. And thank you. Also, seriously, probably the most enriching episode of this podcast
Probably.
we've ever had.
I doubt that.
So I'm sure whether we've got listeners out there who already love Shakespeare or those whose interest you have piqued through your amazing suggestions, please tell them where they can follow and support both you and Shakespeare Shadows, your incredible podcast.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, for the moment to plug that. So again, the podcast is called Shakespeare's Shadows. You can find it pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'll tell folks the same thing that Connor says about your podcast. Follow, subscribe, all that good stuff if you are interested. And the most active social media platform I have for promoting the podcast is Instagram. And there you can find the podcast at Shakespeare's Shadows. So there's that double S in the middle there. And you can find me on the gram and some other places at Emily N. Rome.
Yay.
Oh, yes.
This has been such a pleasure, Emily. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you liked what you heard, please go follow Emily, go follow Shakespeare Shadows, and please remember to follow or subscribe to Poor Unfortunate Podcast wherever you're listening to the podcast, so all of our episodes download right to your device and you don't miss out on anything. And then this is that time where you're going to go hit 5 stars, leave a written review, and then you're going to go over to Shakespeare Shadows.
That is
and you're going to listen to one of the episodes, and then you're going to hit 5 stars there and leave a written review there too,
Thanks,
because
folks.
that's how we do this. That's how it happens.
Yes.
So thank you all for taking the time to do that.
And please follow us on social media. As you all probably know by now, we are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok. Definitely head to Instagram, especially because we are going to tag Shakespeare Shadows. We're going to tag Emily. We're going to share posts so you can get familiar with Shakespeare Shadows as well. And you're just going to love it. And if you want even more Poor Unfortunate podcasts in your life, please join our private Facebook group, the Poor Unfortunate Fam. We've got over 100 listeners in there right now. We talk about the episodes. I can't wait to hear what everyone has to say about this one because I know we've got a lot of theater folks who listen to this podcast as well. So we would just love to meet you there and hear what you have to say about the podcast.
And if you're looking for some merch, we do have that available in the Poor Unfortunate shop. It's poorunfortunatepodcast.com/shop. T-shirts, hats, all the stuff. So as you start taking your vacations and go to the parks, you've got something new to wear. So go check that out. And as I always say, it does take us a little bit of money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you all. We do have a PayPal account. It's linked in the episode description and in the website links in our social media accounts. Truly, anything that you have to spare goes a long way for us. It could be $5, $10, more than that. It could be a one-time donation. It could be a monthly donation. It could be, whatever you want it to be. But it all just goes right back into the podcast, helping us keep it free and ad-free for the most part. And to all of our monthly donors, thank you so much. This wouldn't be happening without you. Well, thank you again, Emily, for being here.
Thank you,
Emily.
This has been a delight. Thanks so
good.
much, Caroline and Connor.
Good. And until next time, listeners,
Beluga Sevruga.